Hey everybody, welcome to the Mana Leek. I'm John as always, and it's time for the January 2nd Theros Beyond Death preview recap. And we got a bunch today, so let's get started. Up first from MTG Arena, Twitter is Stinging Lionfish with really nice art. Stinging Lionfish is 1 and a blue for an enchantment creature fish at uncommon. It's a 2/1. Whenever you cast your first spell during each opponent's turn, you may tap or untap target non-land permanent. So a cool little include for possibly Simic Flash, getting to untap your possibly your Paradise Druid. Is that the thing? The hexproof mana dork person to get that ramp because you can't unfortunately untap your lands, or just to untap a blocker, things like that. And seems like also a great solid little creature for limited. All in all, Stinging Lionfish looks solid. It's obviously not a splashy bomb rare mythic or anything, but I like it. I like it a fair bit. Drag to the Underworld is up next from Card Kingdom. Drag to the Underworld is 2 black for an instant at uncommon to destroy target creature, but the spell costs X less to cast, where X is your devotion to black. So this could be black, kill something, which is amazing. And even if this is 2 black to destroy a creature at instant speed, that is a card that we've seen before. Bake into a pie minus the food, or I'm gonna say impale, but I'm pretty sure that was a sorcery. But we've seen this card before, and it's totally fine and limited at the cost, and if it's cheaper, that's even better. Constructed, it's probably too expensive unless you are definitely getting that reduction. May still see some standard play if this is black commonly enough. But yeah, solid removal, happy to see it. At uncommon, that's great. Our common removal from the Vorthos cast is Final Death. Final Death is 4 and a black for an instant at common, exile target creature. So this is Theros. We're definitely going to be encouraged to put auras on creatures, which means removal does have to be a little bit clunky or expensive if we're going to do it at common. We're not getting Sip of Hemlock, it doesn't look like, so we're not getting the 4 black removal that we saw the first time around, but we're still going to get expensive removal, and we're still going to have to deal with it. This is obviously only going to be limited removal. You're never going to play this anywhere else ever. But yeah, this is what we've got for limited removal, it looks like, in black. Up next from Cool Stuff Inc. is Nylea's Intervention. Nylea's Intervention is X green for a sorcery at rare. Choose one, search your library for up to X land cards, reveal them, put them into your hand, and then shuffle your library. Or Nylea's Intervention deals twice X damage to each creature with flying. This card seems incredibly bad everywhere. I don't want to play this in limited because by the time that I'm going to go get like 3 or 4 lands, I don't need them, and they're just in my hand. They're not on the battlefield. It's a fine sideboard card. I'll side it in to kill a 3/3 flyer or something for 5 mana, although even that's expensive. It also has really weird art. The art has nothing to do with this card. It honestly seems like the art was for a different card, and then maybe it got changed. Maybe this tutored up creatures or was an overrun effect or something. But yeah, there's a lot not great going on with this card. I don't expect to see it get any standard constructed commander play, anything. And yeah, even in limited, it's sideboard only. Up next from little known website magic.wizards.com is Polukranos Unchained. That's right, Poly K is back. 2 black-green for a legendary creature zombie hydra at mythic for a 0/0, but Polukranos does enter the battlefield with 6 +1/+1 counters on it. It escapes with 12 +1/+1 counters on it instead. If damage would be dealt to Polukranos while it has a +1/+1 counter on it, prevent that damage and remove that many +1/+1 counters from it. Pay 1 black-green, Polukranos fights another target creature, and then escape 4 black-green, exile 6 other cards from your graveyard. It's crazy. It's nutty. It's a super duper powerful bomb. It's first pick in every single pack that it's ever in because a 6/6 for 4 is great, and being able to fight on command, although it does shrink after that fight, is great, and then escaping it. Like I said yesterday, I think you're only going to escape 1, maybe 2 cards per game in limited. This is going to be 1, and it's going to be incredible. Yeah, huge, amazing card. Obviously, the Hydra people are going to love it because there is a Hydra in like every set, and this is a big Hydra. This is your Hydra commander because it's a legendary. Yeah, Polukranos just looks fantastic. Standard play, not 100% sold. I'm not sure exactly where it would go at the moment, but yeah, this card looks great. Wavebreak Hippocamp is up next. Wavebreak Hippocamp is 2 and a blue for an enchantment creature Horsefish at rare. It's a 2/2. Whenever you cast your first spell during each opponent's turn, draw a card. So again, Simic Flash getting some potential toys. This one looks like it could be pretty decent. It is going to be one of those Simic Flash cards where you are not flashing this creature in, but I think the value of every card that you're flashing in, your counter spells, drawing cards, etc., might be big enough for this to actually see standard play. And of course, in limited, it just looks pretty darn decent. And this, along with the Stinging Lionfish, and we've seen a few other cards, suggests that there's probably a blue-red, I would imagine, deck that is going to be all about casting spells on your opponent's turn. And that was previewed by Mike Segrist. Up next from MTG Young Mage is Nyx Herald. Nyx Herald is 2 and a green for an enchantment creature Centaur Shaman at uncommon. It's a 2/3. At the beginning of combat on your turn, target enchanted creature or enchantment creature you control gets +1/+1 and gains trample until end of turn. This card seems pretty darn good for limited. Constructed, it's just not doing enough, I don't think. But for limited, it's a 2/3 for 3, which is okay. We'll play that. We won't write home about it. We'll cut it if we can. But by itself, it attacks as a 3/4 trample, which is great. That's solid. Love that. And of course, if you have anything else that's bigger that is enchanted or is an enchantment creature, then it can attack and have trample and perhaps do even more damage. Seems like a solid green card, not a bomb, but just solid for limited. Everything else, no. Up next from Dicebreaker.com is Tectonic Giant. Tectonic Giant is 2 red for a creature elemental giant at rare. It's a 3/4. Whenever Tectonic Giant attacks or becomes the target of a spell on opponent controls, which seems to be the new giant thing after Bone Crusher Giant in Eldraine, Tectonic Giant deals 3 damage to each opponent, or exile the top 2 cards of your library, choose one of them until the end of your next turn. You may play that card. This card seems great in limited. It's a 3/4 for 4, which, not the best, but okay. And then every time it attacks, it instantly does 3, perhaps doing an additional 3, or if you really want that card draw, you can draw it. And the fact that it's until the end of your next turn means that if you don't happen to have the mana or you can't cast it right now, maybe you can cast it next turn. Or if your opponent casts a spell on it on their turn, you're still going to have that card for your turn. This card seems like a balmy snap first pick. Constructed, I don't quite see a place for it at the moment unless sort of Gruul aggro gets up and going, but Gruul aggro would probably love this. 4 mana might be a little too much for mono red, but maybe it just works in it. But yeah, I expect amazing limited play from this card and potential standard play. Outside of standard, of course, not much going on here. Up next is a Rasta of Endless Webs. A Rasta of Endless Webs is 2 green for a legendary enchantment creature spider. That's right, it's a spider commander to join the other one legendary spider I can think of. Maybe there's a second one. It's got reach as spiders do. It's a 3/5, and whenever an opponent casts an instant or sorcery spell, create a 1/2 green spider creature token with reach. So it's a 3/5 reach for 4, which is okay. That's a mammoth spider. And whenever my opponent casts an instant or sorcery, I get a 1/2 spider. There's not much going on here for limited, I don't think. The thing to remember with instants and sorceries is in limited, it's a creature format. It's always a creature format, at least in standard limited sets. And so you're probably only going to get like 2 spiders off of this, maybe 3. Anything beyond that's a little bit of a pipe dream in the average limited game. So really, this is just a 3/5 spider and not too much going else on with it. You could main deck it. It might be a little bit better out of the sideboard. This obviously looks like a huge commander plant. It's a legendary spider, so it could be your commander. It can go in your spider deck. You can play your adaptive automatons and stuff like that. And so yeah, for commander, it seems great. Everything else, well, not so much. Up next is Blood Aspirant, previewed by Eurogamer. Blood Aspirant is 1 and a red for a creature Satyr Berserker. Whenever you sacrifice a permanent, put a +1/+1 counter on Blood Aspirant. Pay 1 and a red, tap, sacrifice a creature or enchantment. Blood Aspirant deals 1 damage to target creature. That creature can't block this turn. Seems like maybe Black-Red Sacrifice or Jund Sacrifice in Standard might have another card here. I'm not quite sure. The fact that you have to sacrifice a creature or enchantment plus pay 1 and a red could be a little bit costly. Obviously, you're going to want to be sacrificing your cat, but we have free sacrifice outlets, so I don't see this actually getting play. In limited, it seems like a totally okay card other than the fact that it's a 1/1. You definitely want to get that first counter on it. It's really going to depend on how much sacrifice outlet you have. What I'm really hoping to see is some active trees and effects that I can steal and sack, but we'll see if that happens. Up next is a reprint, Vanishing Light, as previewed by Wizards Magic. Vanishing Light is 2 and a white for an enchantment at uncommon. When Vanishing Light enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent on opponent controls until Vanishing Light leaves the battlefield. We've seen this card, we know this card, it's solid white removal, basically unconditional, but of course there's going to be enchantment hate in this format because enchantments matter. Don't get too cute, don't start thinking, oh, this is actually a bad card because there's common enchantment removal that could screw it up. That's not correct thinking. That is trying to be way too clever. You're not that clever. Don't try to be that clever. That's how people got into problems with Trapped in a Tower in Eldraine, saying, oh, actually, you could fairy guide mother it and break it, and so it's bad and you shouldn't even play it. And that is just massively wrong. Trapped in a Tower was still one of the best white commons. Vanishing Light will be a first pickable card. And it's good to have it back because it could see some standard play. Indomitable Will was also previewed by Wizards Magic, 1 and a white for an enchantment aura at common. It's got flash, enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +1/+2. It's basically a combat trick, but in an enchantments matter deck, or format rather. It's going to be even better than that because the +1/+2 gets to stick around as though it was counters, but it's not counters, it's an enchantment, so that's cool. And it's got 1 white mana pip for devotion. So that's also cool. Limited only, not even amazing in limited, but probably a little bit more playable than it would be in other sets. Borncer was also previewed by Wizards Magic, 1 white for an enchantment creature Centaur Scout at common. It's a 2/4 and it's got some flavor text. That's about it. Obviously only for limited, obviously going to help out Devotion with white, and it's going to help out Enchantments Matters, but it's draft chaff filler. It's going to see no other play otherwise. Previewed by Lady Danger was Farika's Spawn. Farika's Spawn is 3 and a black for a creature Gorgon at uncommon. It's a 3/4 with escape, 5 and a black, and exile 3 other cards. Farika's Spawn escapes with 2 +1/+1 counters on it. When it enters the battlefield this way, each opponent sacrifices a non-Gorgon creature. And assuming this is like the original Theros, there's not actually going to be that many Gorgons, so it's almost definitely going to kill something. Except it is sacrifice, which means your opponent will kill their piddly little 1/1 or something and not their special big bomb. This is definitely limited only. It's an okay payoff for the blue-black, what I assume is the blue-black escape deck, but otherwise it doesn't look that great. It's got fine stats, so you'll still play it, and it'll still be a little bit of bonus if you return it, but being an edict effect, and being an edict effect on like turn 6 or 7 or 8, isn't that great. Up next for MTG CT is a card that's being translated as Return on Mythic Spoiler, or on MTG Elation it says Rebirth for Glory. Obviously some missing translation there. I doubt it's either of those names. But whatever it is, it's 3 white/black for a sorcery. Choose one or both. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, or return target aura card from your graveyard to the battlefield. And it's at uncommon. Yeah, it's an interesting card. It's a little bit expensive at 5 mana, but returning a creature to the battlefield kind of has to be expensive these days. Otherwise, it can be very heavily abused. Getting to return potentially an aura, or an aura as well as a creature, could be pretty powerful. I could definitely see some commander decks that would like to play this, especially if they're pretty enchantment heavy, although I believe those are often not including black in their commander. I think you're typically playing something like Bruna, which of course is blue-white, so let me know if there's a commander deck that this could fit into easily that would be happy with kind of abusing enchantment returning spells. But beyond that, it is a reanimator spell, and I know people are always looking for reanimator spells. In limited, it probably has some okay play, but as always with these kind of things, it depends on you actually getting something that you want to return into your graveyard, which could just not happen, making this card pretty mediocre in that case. So we'll see how it goes, and let me know if there's a black-white enchantments commander deck. I don't know somebody offhand, but there's a billion commanders that I'm not aware of. Finally for today, as previewed by Magic Mikes, is Nessie and Boar. Nessie and Boar is 3 green for a creature Boar at rare. It's a 10/6 for 5. All creatures able to block Nessie and Boar do so. And whenever Nessie and Boar becomes blocked by a creature, that creature's controller draws a card. Now that sounds like a great big downside. I attack with my 10/6. My opponent blocks with all 5 of their things because they have to. And then before anything happens, they draw 5 cards. Oh my god, this card's awful. It's actually not. I think people are going to sleep on this card really heavily. A 10/6 is going to wipe their board, and sure, draw them potentially a bunch of cards, and if they do have 6 or more power, kill the boar. But the big thing here is that this is a lure, and lures don't come around all the time. Not everything must block it style lures. And so some people might not have experience with them. The way that you use this board, you don't just attack to kill 3 creatures. You attack when you have lethal in your other creatures who are unblockable, because everything else has to be blocking this. That's how you use this card. It doesn't matter that your opponent's going to draw a bunch of cards because they're going to be dead. So make sure you use this card properly in Limited, because it's going to be pretty powerful, and I think people are going to sleep on it to start. But that's going to wrap it up for today. Again, I think there's a couple of more, but people are previewing these cards all around the clock because they definitely have a very global perspective, as you can see by how many of these cards are not in English. And so those cards will have to be for tomorrow's video. As always, let me know what you think of these previews. Which ones are you excited about? Which ones do you agree with my takes or disagree? Let me know in the comments down below. If you do have any questions, comments, or suggestions, you can find me over on Twitter, Twitch, and Facebook. You can find me at patreon.com/ShamanLeek if you want to help out that way. You can go over to inkedgaming.com/ShamanLeek to let them know that I sent you if you want to get a playmat or dice bags or stuff like that. And of course, the easiest way to help out is like, share, subscribe. But if you do have questions, comments, or suggestions, let me know. Otherwise, see y'all tomorrow.